There we go. It's a bit more understandable. Not receiving enough to maintain smooth streaming. Well, that's a problem. Because it says my stream is fine. Interesting. Well, we'll cover that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Maybe I should just turn the music down. There we go. Now it looks much better. Okay, cool. That's been fixed. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm kind of sleepy. I had a rough day yesterday. I was, had a bit of a flare-up. Not a really bad one, but bad enough to just sort of put me out for the day. And, I've been just trying to play catch-up ever since. Excuse me, my God. Alright, so let's stop the music. Because I want y'all's input on something. Now, I have 2 noise generators. And I need y'all to tell me, because I know somebody's in this chat. I need somebody to tell me, which generator do you prefer? I'm going to turn it up. We've got this one. That's number 1. And then we've got this one. This is the one I usually use. Then we've got this one that's kind of a mixture of both. I know which ones I prefer. I actually think I might stick with my usual, which would be this one. Oh, wait, no, wrong one. Leaning towards 2, but maybe you could try a fun one, fun new one, maybe 3. Also, hello, Jennifer. Thank you for joining me. Let's see. I really like 2. It's usually the one I use for these streams. It's usually the one I use for my Sims streams, too. I really like the voice one, but I mostly use the voice one for my writing. So I think we're gonna stick with 2 today. Alright, let me know if it's too loud. I know it can be. Because the thing is, if I turn it down past a certain point, it will just stop. So, just let me know if it's too loud. And I believe we left off on chapter 13. Now, let me get my video squared away. No, actually, there we are. Wait, no. Oh, here we go. This is the right one. I was like, wait a second, wait a second. Okay, yeah, this is the right one. Okay, we are still using the Sparkling Waters translation of the novel. And this one is on WordPress specifically. Hang on, that's a lot of jostling. Yeah, this one's on WordPress specifically. There are a lot of different translations, and to be honest, I'm thinking of using the one on Wattpad. Some of the phrasing in this one can be really confusing just for me as a narrator. Oh, crap. I just realized something. I just realized something important. Hello. Won't be able to stick around for the entire stream, but I'll catch the rest later. Okay, cool. I am stuck with... I almost knocked over my entire picture, and that would have been a problem. I just realized that I am in the middle of a problem. There we go, I fixed it. It's just that easy. Alright, so tell me, how does the audio sound? Okay, because once we square away with the audio... Oh, yeah, by the way, I keep forgetting to do this. I am using, once again, the My Noise sound generator. This sound is not available if you do not donate. I believe the only sounds that they have available are nature and rain sounds, if you don't pay. Good for my end. All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. I've done all my available vocal warm-ups, so let's go ahead and get started. There's no real housekeeping I need to do, although, you know what? I'll just wait till after the stream to tell you guys. Okay. So when we last left off, we are basically on episode like 5, 6 of the show, and this is right before I think Zojishu gets poisoned. So, okay. Chapter 13. Exposed. Zojishu abruptly stopped walking and sized up the 4 cave entrances with a frown. There's water and wind here. The chances for someone to poison us are low, he said. He wouldn't call himself an expert in medicine-related matters, but the current emperor during his years as crown prince used to be acquainted with a young shaman from Xinjiang who was held hostage at the capital. The shaman was following orders from the Shaman Valley to use the pugilist scene in Zhongyuan as test subjects for their medicine, and most of the South's I thought I read all of these before I started reading. Xinjiang originated remedies and poisons which were unheard of at the time were brought here by him. Zojishu might not possess an intensive knowledge, but he had seen enough to know that there had yet to exist a poison that could use hallucination for this long. Wen Kexing nodded. So, someone has used divination to help find ways to trap us here. Do you know anything about it? Zojishu replied calmly. The stuff's about 3 directions, 8 trigrams, and 6 jias? You must have studied a lot of things, even this, Wen Kexing said with surprise. Zojishu was nonplussed. Of course I don't. That's all I know about it. He decided to sit down as walking further was an impossible feat. While leaning back onto the wall, he carelessly let the wound graze the surface. He shivered and slightly grimaced, unable to process the fact that a mere wild beast could agonize him to this state. But such was the life of being seen as a nuisance everywhere he went. Wen Kexing thought about how he at least knew what 3 directions and 8 trigrams actually was, and felt a sense of intellectual superiority. But after he remembered that Zojishu sold himself for 2 silvers, the superiority fell flat. So he sat down beside the injured man, tilting his head to look at the wound, somewhat delighted at the other's misfortune. Serves you right for treating a monster like a little girl. Zojishu closed his eyes to recuperate, paying no attention to him. Wen Kexing silently stood up, walked away, and returned after a while. Zojishu felt a spike of coldness on his shoulder. When he opened his eyes to Wen Kexing using a soaked piece of cloth to wash the wound. On instinct, Zhou Zishu avoided the touch, but Wen Kexing held back his shoulder. Don't move. Zhou Zishu asked with a pained face, Where'd you get the water from? The river, Wen Kexing replied. After some thinking, he added, It's running water. Really clean. Zhou Zishu felt his hair stand on end. He knew it was running water, so drinking from it was no problem, much less using it to treat injuries. But he couldn't stop thinking about those underwater creatures roaming around there. Sharp-eyed, Wen Kexing happily teased the other after noticing the goosebumps. Can you really be disgusted when you look like a ragged beggar yourself? Come on, stop acting like a maiden. Zhou Zishu knew the other had a point. Nevertheless, he glanced at the other's handkerchief witheringly. The fragrance from it, a gentle and elegant smell of beauty products, attacked his nostrils. And at the corner was a small but exquisitely embroidered orchid. The size was a bit too big, and it looked too plain for a maiden to use. But if this was a man's, what kind of person would carry this on them? He couldn't help but give Wen Kexing a weird look and tease the man back since no one was around. My good friend, why are you carrying around a maiden's why did I add a word? My good friend, why are you carrying a maiden's belongings? Is there a story behind this? Wen Kexing, who was carefully removing the blood-stained fabric from the open wound, immediately tore the clothes with more force after hearing that. Face blank, Zhou Zishu let an ow! Grimacing. Only then did Wen Kexing answer in good spirits. Only then did Wen Kexing answer in good spirits. And this is a personal gift from the famous courtesan and gentleman Su Yue from Yangzhou City. You shouldn't have asked if you don't want to make an ignorant fool of yourself. Then he continued to tear Su Yue's gift into pieces, then used them to cover Zhou Zishu's wound. Zhou Zishu had no idea people from Jiangnan were that open-minded. He asked without thinking, because even back when the capital was 30 miles from Wangyue River and was ruled by that degenerate emperor, the concept of a male courtesan was not heard of anywhere. Wen Kexing looked at him with pity. Were you born in Utopia? Is everyone from Tiangtuan a country bumpkin? Or was my guess wrong? Zhou Zishu scoffed. I have never said that I was... Before he could finish, Wen Kexing moved at lightning speed to dig at a major acupuncture point on his chest. If the target was at another place on his body and was covered by clothes, Zhou Zishu would not feel anything. But he was exhausted, and the unruly nails were acting up, so that every light attack was the last straw. He cried out, body bent over in pain. You... Wen Kexing rubbed his chin, his tone knowing. Your internal injuries are very serious. And seeing as how capable you are, there's no way Tianchuang will let you go easily. But, from what I heard, the deadly reputation of the nails of 7 apertures for 3 autumns is no joke. Yet, I see that you can still behave normally and run around in great spirits. Even if you act a little silly, that silliness isn't definitely caused by the nails. Did I really guess wrong after all? Zhou Zishu gritted out while sweating buckets. Wen Kexing, screw your entire ancestors. Seeing the man stopped putting on an act with all of his blah 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 brother Wen whatever nonsense, Wen Kexing felt accomplished, even though he just got cursed at. He replied nonchalantly, My ancestors are just dust now. I don't even know their names, so that might be an impossible feat. Though, if you can remove your disguise, and under that is a stunning face, I'm perfectly willing to be a replacement for my forebears. Damn, Wen Kashing's really coming on strong in the book. Zhou Jishu was still gritting his teeth tightly, body wound up like a shrimp, trying his best to keep the nails under control. At the other's ramblings, he interrupted in irritation. Would you shut the fuck up? Wen Kashing shut up immediately, crossing his arms and watching by the side with not a single ounce of guilt. After an undecipherable amount of time, Zhou Jishu opened his bloodshot eyes. Even though outsiders could not see what his real expression was, it was clearly not pleasant. It's morning now. The nails had calmed down, which signified dawn. They had been trapped in this strange cave for an entire night. Wen Kashing was not anxious either. He nodded at that. Seems whoever lured you here possibly did on purpose. Seems whoever lured you here, possibly on purpose, really wants you dead. Whoever lured you. Zhou Jishu replied. It's obviously you. I'm a good person. Wen Kashing wouldn't admit defeat. Zhou Jishu ignored him, grasping at the wall to stand up. He leaned on it and started calculating the way to escape. Wen Kashing asked by his side, Aren't you afraid, Zhou Shu? I am, Zhou Zishu replied. Wen Kashing stared at him, slightly surprised. Zhou Zishu continued very seriously. I haven't gathered enough merits yet. If I enter hell now, who knows what I'll reincarnate into? Wen Kashing firmly said after some thought, You definitely weren't a good person before then. He didn't wait for Zhou Jishu's reply. If that's the case, isn't it too late to start merit gathering now? Zhou Jishu straightened his back and walked toward a direction. Why? Haven't you heard of the saying, the second you drop the knife is when you become Buddha? Wen Kashing chased after him. Where are you going? I'm going to eat dog meat, Zhou Jishu said. That person only traps us here. Traps you, Wen Kashing corrected. Zhou Jishu glanced at him with contempt, continuing, That beast's head is quite hefty. Feasting on that is enough to last us for a few days. I absolutely just made that sentence up. The beast's head is quite hefty. Feasting on that is enough to last us a few days. Without it, there's still the underwater creatures, so we definitely won't starve. Doesn't matter who that person dressed in black is. They'll show themselves eventually. Wen Kashing said in horror, You were afraid of the dirty river water just yesterday, and now you want to eat those things that live in it? And are you going to starve yourself to death and let those things eat you instead? Zhou Jishu replied and concluded, How saintly of you, Brother Wen. Light couldn't reach the cave, but fortunately Zhou Zishu brought... Sorry, I'm short-circuiting apparently. The light couldn't reach the cave, but fortunately Zhou Jishu brought with him some lighters, since he planned on escaping in the night. There was also a luminous pearl that he stole from the riches. The pearl was small, but it was enough for them to move around. The faint light cast over half of his face, and Wen Kashing saw not the unpleasant features, but very bright eyes that were directed at him, carrying an indescribable hint of playfulness. That look was somewhat familiar. Wen Kashing thought long and hard about it, but he couldn't remember which beauty those eyes belonged to, so he stayed silent. In the moment when both of them said nothing, Zhou Jishu's ears caught the sound of a breath that was neither his nor Wen Kashing's. He smiled. As expected, someone was not feeling very patient right now. He then stood by the river, and bent down to wash his hands, killing another monster that was sneakily attacking in the process. He lifted it up and threw it on the ground. The creature's neck broke, and it drew its last breath without even making a sound. Zojishu scooped up the water and drank leisurely. When Kushing, a carefree hoodlum himself, stared at his companion thoughtfully before using the tip of his toe to kick the corpse away, and drank the river water like the other. At that moment, a blade of wind came at them from behind. When Kushing dodged it by stepping aside, seemingly predicted it as he looked calm. The blade grazed his robes and fell into the water with a splash. Zojishu laughed. His arms crossed as he stood on one side to enjoy the fun. "See, Brother Wen? Didn't I say that they're after you? And you're definitely not the good type either, seeing as that they devote this much effort to deal with you." There were blades coming at him from every direction. of the cave. Those blades completely went past Zojishu to charge at Wen Kushing, creating a maze of weapons. But Wen Kushing didn't struggle at all. His Qinggong was so much more skillful than Zojishu had estimated. That's the word. Internally, though, he was cursing. This Zo person was such a vengeful and petty one. Not only was he not good, he was utterly contemptible. When Kushing lifted his arm to bat away another blade, which brushed Zojishu's pants and planted itself on the ground. "Is leaving one to sink or swim your way of gathering merits, my beautiful Zhou?" Yeah, there's definitely, like, much more sexual tension than what the show starts off with. I mean, for obvious reasons. All of those beginning and ending with censorship. Okay, so, how's audio so far? Next chapter. Also, if you are watching the stream, please feel free to leave a like. It really helps. I know every YouTuber says that because the algorithm is merciless. Also, I apologize about my Nirvana and Fire videos. So my episode 3, the episode that just went up today, they claimed the episode about 45 minutes before it actually went live. And because they claimed it, they boosted all of the sections they claimed, and it kind of really fucks with the audio. So there's like a lot of fuzz, and I don't know how to fix it, because even if I silence the video, they still try to boost the audio so you can hear the episode. And then it's bad. It's bad. They just block it after that. So, I don't know how I'm gonna deal with that in the future. I might just play the video. Itself, but that's besides the point. I'm getting off topic. So, let me take a sip. Alright. Chapter 14. Escape. Zojishu looked him over before replying unhurriedly, "I don't see how you're near death." He hadn't finished when Wen Kushing, as if responding, cried out in pain with his back bent. One of the blades pierced through his body to the hilt, and his face went pale as he could only utter, "Phew." Zojishu was initially shocked, but soon enough he rushed toward the opposite direction. In the corner was a fleeting shadow, which caught Zojishu's eyes thanks to the incredibly narrow path. The shadow was unable to dodge his attack in time. They coughed up blood, which strained their whole mask. which stained their whole mask. I knew that didn't sound right. They staggered back a few steps, but still had it in them to get back on their feet and run. There was an "oh" from Zozie Shu as he realized the pine cone last time didn't stop them, not because he didn't put enough strength into it, but rather because this one was good at being a punching bag. All of a sudden, a ghostly figure appeared from nowhere to grab at the person's neck, propping them against the wall. The man in black said in horror, "You." Wen Kexing tilted his head and smiled, his other arm raised. The blade, which was held under his armpit, fell to the ground. His clothes didn't suffer a single scratch. Zozie Shu spoke in a lethargic manner. "Did you really believe his hoax? This is the first time I've ever seen a killer this dumb." At that, Wen Kexing looked at him thoughtfully. "It's not that he's awful. Your eyes are just way too sharp, my friend. If you aren't injured, he might—" He cut himself off right there and shook his head, strengthening his grip on the black-clothed man's neck. There was a gurgling sound from his throat, while his eyes shone with unspeakable fear. Wen Kexing felt his upper body with his other hand and hummed, "Gold-threaded armor. This is some good stuff. A shame that it's wasted on you." The man forced out broken words with great difficulty. Wen Kexing's lips curled, and with a crack, the man convulsed and went still. Zozie Shu watched his companion killing off this person without any interrogating. His eyes darkened a little. He took one step back and leaned onto the wall, arms crossed while thinking about something. Wen Kexing removed the man's mask to completely reveal his identity. He looked around 40, with a small physique and high, cruel cheekbones. Cruel cheekbones? Who is this, Benedict Cumberbatch? On his right cheek was a big red birthmark. His eyes were small, his nose was big, and he had buck teeth. Wen Kexing commented after examining, "Seeing how he looks, he deserves to die after all." Then he raised his head to smile at Zozie Shu. "Do you agree, Brother Zoe?" Zozie Shu replied, "You're so full of nonsense." Wen Kexing held up his arms in a gesture of appreciation. "I'm very incredibly honored that you thought of me so." Zozie Shu laughed mockingly and went past him to look at the body. There were many burning questions inside him, such as, how did the famous golden armor, which disappeared from Jianghu many years ago, end up in this person's hands? Was this the one Zhui Fang, the hanged ghost? How were those underwater creatures made? Were they human? I am going to need y'all to relax. I don't know what's going on upstairs, but it needs to cease and desist. He undressed the corpse in a blink of an eye and found a daunting tattoo of a ghost face on his back. Zozie Shu paused. He could be no one else but one of the ghosts. The hanged? Hanged ghost Zhui Fang apparently had buck teeth? This isn't right. And Zozie Shu immediately abandoned this very Wen Kexing-like train of thought. Were those the actual ghosts that chased after him and Zhang Chengling along the way? Impossible. The ghosts of Qingzhou Ridge couldn't possibly make a name for themselves if that was all they could do. Why did the hanged ghost want to kill Yu Tianjie? I absolutely butchered that name. Yu Tianjie. I think that's how I pronounce it. And was the person who went the other way the delighted morning ghost? The act of killing renowned figures on the outskirts of Zhao Holdings was a direct confirmation that they were the ones responsible for the Zhang family massacre. What good would it bring the Ghost Valley? And he looked up at an amiable Wen Kexing, questioning him suddenly. Didn't Brother Wen proclaim that you never murdered anyone ever since you left home? Why go against that now? Wen Kexing glared. He wanted to end me first. And if I hadn't been smart and clever enough, I would have died under those blades. So Jishu smiled. Were you also adamant that this disaster would never befall you, Mr. Good-hearted Wen? Wen Kexing replied with sense. Look at this one, and the ghost face on his back. Then look at the young man we found. He lost his head before he could even get hitched. Don't you see? It proves that this... wow, I am fucking up this sentence. It proves that this man was of the extremely vile sort. Did he need a reason to take the life of a good-hearted one? Zhou Jishu looked at him, not saying anything. Wen Kexing shook his head, voice full of conviction. How sad for an adult like you to be completely ignorant of such principles. I can't even imagine how you grew up. Zhou Jishu was silent for a good while. Then he spat out, grateful for the education. Wen Kexing was quick to reply, It's nothing at all. Don't be so formal. Oh my god. Zhou Jishu looked down, back to searching the body. While he was removing the armor, a small pouch fell out from the area near the chest. He carefully took it off, and found a sparkling piece of lapis lazuli inside. It was as big as the palm of his hand, and meticulously crafted, seemingly engraved with patterns. He held up a broken piece to examine it under the light. Lapis? There was an "ah" from Wen Kexing as he took a closer look and received it from the other with both hands, as if he was afraid of breaking it. No wonder he... Oh, sorry, wrong voice. No wonder he wore the gold armor. I would have done the same if this was in my possession. Zhou Jishu was curious at the other man's attitude. What is it? He couldn't help but ask. Wen Kexing replied, This is one of the 5 pieces that make up the legendary lapis armor. I thought them to be rumors, but this seems like they're real after all. It said that once you gather all 5 pieces, you will rule over the entire pugilist scene in Zongyuan, no matter who you are. Some say those pieces have the guide to the greatest martial arts style hidden within them. Others say they hide a map instead, and when you follow directions, it will lead you to the object of your dreams and desires. He put it back in Zhou Jishu's palm somewhat reluctantly, curling the other's fingers around it. It's good stuff, he said softly. Wow, knowing what happens, that scene has a lot of weight. Damn. Zhou Jishu nodded in understanding, then immediately batting Wen Kexing's hand away. He put the piece of lapis back into the pouch and carelessly threw it aside to continue searching the hanged ghost's body. After turning the corpse over and finding nothing else, he stood up with a frown. Well, this is troublesome. How do we get out now? That's the wrong voice. I did it again. Well, this is troublesome. How do we get out now? He stared down upon the still-sitting Wen Kexing, continuing in annoyance. I'm asking you, Mr. Good Person Wen. You killed this man way too quickly. Do you want us to dig our way out like mice? Wen Kexing pointed to the lapis. Don't you want that? Zhou Jishu replied with a solemn face. If the completed piece is made of real lapis, then it is worth a fortune. But there's only one part of it here, so it's entirely useless. Not even the pawn shop would take that thing. At that, Wen Kexing laughed softly and stood up. He followed Zhou Jishu while asking, Seeing how cautious Brother Zhou is, why don't you believe in the rumors? Don't you have any wishes or desires? Zhou Zishu didn't bother looking back. There's no such thing as a free lunch, even if you don't want it yourself. So why must I? Don't you have desires too, charitable Brother Wen? Wen Kexing turned his head away at that, carefully putting the pouch in his chest pocket. What if I want it? He asked. Zhou Zishu glanced at him, then replied, and nothing else. They walked back and forth in the cave, revisiting both the spot visiting from the spot they jumped down and the entrance with blades sticking out. Zhou Zishu felt the wall surrounding them with his hands. This gate closed when we tried it out. So, at the time, the hanged ghost was definitely near. Controlling the mechanism might be around this spot. The controlling mechanism might be around this spot, too. But they were both completely clueless about divination, so the search was fruitless. The seven nails started to stir slightly, informing Zhou Zishu that it was nearing midnight again. Another full day passed with them trapped under here, and considering that he was in worse condition than before, eating that dog-like beast might be inevitable. While they were thinking hard, all of a sudden a faint voice could be heard from somewhere far away from the cave entrance. Hurry up! I found this place. Let me call out to them. Master? Can you hear me? Master, are you still breathing? If you are, I'm gonna dig you out of this grave. But if you go see the King of Hell, I won't. Okay, that's Gu Xiang. I'm using the wrong voice. Hurry up! I found this place. Let me call out to them. Master? Master, can you hear me? Master, are you still breathing? If you are, I'm gonna dig you out of this grave. But if you want to go see the King of Hell, I won't bother you. It was Gu Xiang. For some unknown reason, after being chased by a big dog, bitten by a monster, terrified by the hanged ghost's appearance, Zhou Zishu felt incredibly grateful for her voice. Gu Xiang continued to whisper, Did you not hear me, or are you dead already? Master, I'm gonna leave you for real if you don't speak up. Only then did Wen Kexing speak up leisurely. Ah, Xiang, do you know what happens to girls who talk too much and do nothing? This seems to be a special kung fu of delivering sounds. Zhou Zishu has seen it from the other man several times. No matter where he was or how quiet he talked, he could make his target hear what he said very clearly. Gu Xiang made a whining sound, urging someone. Hurry up! Master didn't hear you telling me to do this more, and didn't you hear Master telling me to do more and talk less? Let's get him out of here. The sound of grave digging started afterwards. Zhou Zishu suddenly realized, rather than not doing much, Gu Xiang just didn't do anything at all. It took nearly 4 hours to dig them out, like digging out 2 big turnips. Beside Gu Xiang was a crowd of men who looked like regular workers. She shouted, Look, they're crawling out! Zhou Zishu didn't want to get any more at her words. Didn't want to get out any more at her... Oh. Zhou Zishu didn't want to get out any more at her words. It took me a minute to understand that sentence, my bad. Gu Xiang... that's the wrong name. Wen Kexing remained calm, making his way out with his face full of dirt and grime. He glanced at Gu Xiang, ordering her, You can shut up now. Gu Xiang stuck out her tongue, making an ugly face at Zhou Zishu's direction. A worker walked toward them and formally greeted Wen Kexing. Master, we're late. Gu Xiang cut in. We actually saw the marks you left behind long ago, but the Zhaos made a ruckus since you... But the Zhaos made quite a ruckus, since you were the only since there were 2 mysterious deaths going on, and all those cowards who came here after that stalled our progress. How did you 2 end up like this, anyway? So Wen Kexing replied, We saw a laughing owl. Zojishu glanced at every other direction at once. It was like being dragged into this was the last thing he wanted. Huh? Kuxiang asked confusedly. Wen Kuxing explained, a laughing owl signifies incoming misfortune, including death. That's why we had to hide underground. That way the ghosts will think that we're already dead and will leave us be. Oh! Kuxiang exclaimed in enlightenment. Wen Kuxing patted her head, continuing shamelessly, Bear in mind, it might save your life one day. Then he looked over to the worker-dressed man. Old Meng, those clothes don't suit you at all. Dress like a butcher next time. Old Meng replied dutifully, Yes, master. Wen Kuxing waved his hand. Go. We don't need people gathering here and making people think that we're a gang of criminals. Old Meng whistled, and the rest disappeared into thin air in a very organized fashion, their traces completely vanishing. Zojishu also said goodbye, but Wen Kuxing told him, Brother Zhou, how about I follow you? Zojishu used silence to proclaim his objection, only for Wen Kuxing to continue, I'm a good man, so I can teach you the art of merit gathering along the way. Zojishu remained silent. Kuxiang, currently watching this staring contest, felt like the atmosphere had gone very strange. Eventually, Wen Kuxing delivered the killing blow, and I'm gonna follow you whether you want me to or not. There was a stiff smile on Zojishu's face as he replied, Be my guest, Brother Wen. Looking at Zojishu, Kuxiang finally understood what the saying, a mule is only obedient when it received a beating, was all about. As for when she looked at Wen Kuxing, she finally knew how a person could be so unabashed they would put the rest of the world to shame. She followed the two men, feeling extremely proud of herself for learning so much in just one night. God, I love Kuxiang so much. Please, candy. Oh, hey! It's April 15th! American viewers, do your taxes. Do your taxes. Do them right now. If you haven't done them, do your taxes. Now. Taxes. Kuxing is so annoying. Yeah, he's basically like, I'm just gonna be up in your business. And honestly, it just sounds like he's doing that because he's bored and has nothing else to do. Like, at least in Word of Honor, it's like he knew who he was right off the bat. But in this one, no, he's just following him because he's pretty. Okay, right into it. Chapter 15, Tavern. Master, how are you so sure that once a person wears a disguise, it has to be uglier than how they normally are? Wen Kuxing drawled, no matter how ugly or beautiful people look, the features they were born with have a harmonious quality to them. Once tweakings are made, it's impossible not to slip and make a mistake. And if you make yourself to be more beautiful, there will be more eyes on you. Thus exposing those mistakes even more easily. Do you understand? The three of them were walking on the main road that was full of people in the middle of noon. Zojishu maintained his energy well by staying mute during the other two's conversation and ignoring Wen Kuxing's occasional secret looks thrown his way. But at those words, he couldn't help his surprise. This man sure knows a lot. He glanced at Wen Kuxing and thought, being the center of attention, gave a boost to Wen Kushing's ego as he continued to ramble on. The art of disguise is vast with varying methods. Some paint over their face. Some paint over their face. This method requires fastidiousness and it has the smallest... Okay. For some reason, the word fastidiousness is fucking me up. This method requires fastidiousness as the smallest inconsistency will out them. Some craft a human-like skin mask. This one is way more effective and harder to detect if the disguiser is good at his job. He spared a quick look at Zhou Jishu at that. Gu Xiang immediately applied what she had been taught by feeling Zhou Jishu's face with her fingers. Her hands were soft, and around her sleeves was a refreshing fragrance that could only belong to a young maiden. Zhou Jishu made no attempt to dodge. Instead, he only laughed and let her do as she wanted. No one knew who was taking advantage of who at this point. He asked softly and patiently after a while, "Have you found anything?" Gu Xiang's expression was full of doubt. She looked back to Wen Kushing skeptically. "Master, I still feel like it's real." Wen Kushing replied, "Of course you won't wear a human skin mask. That thing leaves no room for the skin to breathe. He would have to remove it after a certain amount of time, which is why I'm sticking to him, to see if he'll do it." There was idolization on Gu Xiang's face. "So you wasted this much time fooling around just because you want an answer to that?" Wen Kushing pointed at Zhou Jishu. "If he's a beauty, I'm definitely not wasting anything." After mulling things over, Zhou Jishu decided he could stay silent no longer. "Since when was I fooling around with you?" Wen Kushing answered unhurriedly, "Not now, but you definitely will in the future." Then he also reached out to touch Zhou Jishu's face. "That time when I touched the skin on your shoulder, the feeling was different." Zhou Jishu batted his head away. Zhou Jishu batted his hand away as he stepped back. Wen Kushing raised his brows in discontent, pointing at Gu Xiang. "How can she touch you, but I can't?" Zhou Jishu casually fixed his torn sleeves. "If you can look like her, I'm willing to strip off everything so you can touch however much you like." Gu Xiang once thought Zhou Jishu was a poor beggar who was too unfortunate to have run into her master and even sympathized with him. But after that reply, she realized they were just birds of the same damn feather. No wonder they flocked together. She could only hope now that they had each other to mess around and fight their energy away with. The less they would cause disaster for the world. Wen Kushing turned to judge Gu Xiang with an unreadable face. Then his voice dropped. Xiang, you can get lost now." There was a, "Huh?" from Gu Xiang as she blinked innocently. "You want me to be off somewhere?" Wen Kushing crossed her arms, really wishing to see her no more. The world is endless. Except for Dongting, you can scram to wherever. Gu Xiang, after a good while standing there foolishly blurted... Gu Xiang, after a while of standing there foolishly blurted out, "Are you jealous of me, master?" Wen Kushing glanced at her. Gu Xiang immediately understood and slapped herself. "Damn you! You stupid mouth! Stupid running mouth! How about..." Xiang. Gu Xiang walked away immediately with an eyes and continued to ramble along the way. All right, I'll scram. Don't worry, master. I'll leave the farthest place I can. A three-legged frog might be hard to find, but not a two-legged man. Never in my life would I dare to steal your men, master. Please, you two, just be my guest. Carry on with what you're doing. She quickly disappeared from view, still prattling on. Zhou Jishu watched this squabble between master and maid with interest, thinking back to the except for Dongting part, which seemed to carry a deeper meaning. Once Guxiang left, Wen Kexing's entire demeanor changed. He coughed pretentiously, extending his hand. Can this one have the honor of having a meal with you, Brother Zhou? Even if I refuse, this person will tail me around anyway, Zhou Jishu thought, and if I agree, he will pay for my food. He accepted the request quite cheerfully. When Kexing led the way with the brightest face, Zhou Jishu did an internal introspection back when he was a half ghost flitting around the palace, wearing robes and doing murderous business in a mysterious place full of apricot blossoms. He might be brutal, but at least there was a grace to him as cover. Since when did he become unabashedly shameless? Hey, you'd be surprised at what an change of environment can do for you. Jeez. Wen Kexing he looked at Wen Kexing's back and thought. He looks at Wen Kexing's back and thought, a man is known by the company he keeps indeed. They were starving when they reached the tavern, so all the dishes were consumed with silent efficiency, as if they were afraid they would miss a bite. Their chopsticks bumped occasionally, and small fights ensued over chicken and pork, so your average family meal. One food admirer and one free meal enthusiast turned to the table into a full-blown battle with a very murderous atmosphere. After winning one plate to himself, Wen Kexing smiled at Zhou Jishu while waiting for the next dish. I've met my match. No wonder why this meal became so much more delicious. Wrong voice, but whatever. Zhou Jishu looked at him scornfully. What are you, a chicken? Why all this fighting? At that moment, there was a commotion on the lower floor. A waiter taunted loudly. Hey, young master, you sure dress and behave well. Why do you want to dine and dash? And the prepayment letter nonsense too. You must have heard too many stories. Which court scholar are you then? Are you a principal graduate? And if so, what examination did you ace in? And the calligraphy? The crowd around them laughed. Wen Kexing stuck his head out to look at the scene under them, rubbing his chin while whispering, a beauty. Zhou Jishu followed his gaze. Downstairs was a flustered young man wearing dark blue clothes, a xiao by his hip. His clothes didn't stand out at first glance, but when one took a closer look, the materials were incredibly exquisite. The jade xiao was also finely crafted. Even if he wasn't an expert, he knew it must have cost a fortune. Sorry. Zhou Jishu felt a sense of familiarity in the way he dressed and laughed quietly. When Kexing asked, "What are you laughing at?" He tries to dress inconspicuously, but ends up doing a terrible job of it. He reminds me of someone I knew. While they were talking, the ignorant young man surrounded by the crowd looked up, his eyes glossing over them. Zhou Jishu shook his head. He surely must be one of the most distinguished nobility. Someone well-versed in dissipated behaviors would never have that doe-eyed look to him. Brother Wen, your chance for merit gathering has come. Wen Kexing, initially watching his companion's expression, was startled at that, hand rummaging in his chest pocket. Yeah, you have a point. Wait. Oh, I completely got fucked up. Someone well-versed in dissipated behaviors would never have that doe-eyed look to him. Brother Wen, Your chance for merit gathering has come. Wen Kuxing, initially watching his companion's expression, was startled at that, hand rummaging in his chest pocket. Yeah, you have a point. It's a must to aid a beauty in need. He stopped dead in his track, face strange. Brother Wen? Huh? I was thinking, how about you do it instead? Wen Kuxing smiled awkwardly. I myself have done a lot in my lifetime. There's no need to steal your moment. So Jishu beamed at him. After a few seconds, Wen Kuxing sighed, shoulders sagging. Back when we were on the street, I helped a dashing man when he tripped and fell. He even smiled at me too. Oh, how could I know that a person with such charm turned out to be a thief? Zhou Jishu raised his brows, deciding that he should be even more shameless. He would not be beaten by this person. His mind made up, he conveniently tugged at Wen Kuxing's sleeves to wipe his hand on them, then took out a silver ingot from his chest and threw it downstairs without any strength. It hit the increasingly offended waiter on the head. This poor man, he's just trying to do his damn job. The man was going to yell at whoever did that, but his anger vanished once he picked up the object and realized it was shiny silver. Then he heard Zhou Jishu's lazy drawl. Put him on my tab. Put him on my tab. Naturally, the waiter shut up, his head lowered with words of affirmation. The young man in blue clothes immediately looked at Zhou Jishu gratefully and went upstairs to thank the other in person. Zhou Jishu pointed at the table that was now empty of food and said to Wen Kuxing, saving him is on me. This meal is on you. Write that down. You owe me 3 silver liangs now. Wen Kuxing spoke in a small voice. Can I use my body to pay the debt? Zhou Jishu smiled, unruffled. Sorry, my taste is not that refined yet. Jesus. The young man had reached where they were sitting. Both hid away their sneaky smiles and displayed the most heroic demeanor possible. The young man bowed deeply. Let me see if I can figure out a voice for our cinnamon roll. My name is Xiao Wenning. Please receive this gesture as a token of my deepest gratitude for your help. I'm gonna have to work on that. Wen Kuxing and Zhou Jishu both spoke at the same time. This is the first book I have had to do with so many male voices. My gosh. Zhou Jishu coughed and looked away. Oh, wait. They glanced at each other meaningfully afterwards, basking in the peculiarity of the situation. Oh, fuck. Wen Kuxing and Zhou Jishu both spoke at the same time. It's nothing, young Master Xiao. There's no need to be so formal. They glanced at each other meaningfully afterwards, basking in the peculiarity of the situation. Zhou Jishu coughed and looked away first. Please sit, young Master Xiao. My name is Zhou Shu, and this one is Wen Kuxing. The other smiled and nodded. He sat quietly and a bit distantly from them. His behavior is the perfect image of a gentleman. After thanking them, Xiao Wenning sat down without a doubt. He was a closed-door disciple from Qingfeng Sword Sect, and this was his first time experiencing life in Jianghu. He got separated from his uncle master and unknowingly ran into a thief, which is why he was in this embarrassing situation. He was well and truly careless about what to do until Zhou Jishu's rescue. Consequently, he deemed this person to be such a righteous individual, even his sickly face didn't seem that grotesque at all to him. Taking advantage of situations was Zhou Jishu's strong point. His skills worked on everyone, except for Wen Kuxing. Only a few sentences into the conversation, and Xiao Wenning already felt like they were the closest of comrades, as he started telling the other everything possible. My uncle master and I were attending the gathering in Dongting. But a few days ago, something awful happened back at Xiao's holding. My uncle and Sir Xiao knew each other way back, so he told me to go to Dongting first to apologize to Sir Gao Chong for being late. Dongting's gathering? Zhou Zishu was surprised. Yes, Xiao Wenning replied. Has Brother Zhou heard of the Zhang family tragedy? Not only that, I heard only a few days ago that the patriarch of Taishan died mysteriously in his own room along with all of his disciples in one night, in a fashion not unlike the Zhang's. The lucky Zhang young master who has survived is now with the Xiaos and under Sir Xiao's protection. He confirmed that the ghosts of Qingzu Ridge were behind this. This gathering at Dongting is summoned by Sir Gao using his realm's command, aiming to gather all of the heroes in the world to extinguish the Ghost Valley. That was a lot of words. On instinct, Zhou Zishu glanced at Wen Kexing, only to find the man deeply invested in the conversation. He even asked, "Is this real?" "Absolutely," Xiao Wenning replied. Uncle and I are under my master's orders to attend." Sure enough, this youngling was someone experiencing real life for the first time. He answered questions he wasn't even asked. When Kexing said, Isn't gathering merits your goal, Brother Zhou? How about accompanying this young friend? Battling evil is surely one of the biggest virtues out there." Zhou Zishu took a sip of wine with his eyes downcast, unsure about Wen Kexing's motives. Xiao clapped his hands. "Indeed it is, and that's very well said of you, Brother Wen. I think you two are very righteous and honorable, and that we can be great friends. So why don't you come with me to Dongting?" This foolish kid. Wen Kexing smiled. "That'd be our honor." Oh my god. Yeah, this is... this is a lot more... Wen Kexing is a lot more conniving, which I didn't think was possible. Is a lot more conniving here. Like, even when it comes for paying for meals. I'm gonna need to put a lidocaine patch on my back pretty soon, because I am... Oh... My back is screaming. I exercise for an hour almost every day if I'm not hurting. And while it has made me feel better mentally, that treadmill has more than fucked up my back. There's no lumbar support on a treadmill. Here, now that I'm leaning back, let me pull my microphone a bit closer. How we doing? We hanging in there? I'm gonna take a little bit of a rest. While I'm just resting for a bit, why don't y'all tell me what shows you've been watching lately? I'm just rehydrating. I really should get that to look better. Maybe if I make it smaller. Give me a second. There we go. You know, when I'm narrating a book, I normally don't take Guardian and Luo Yang. I want to watch Luo Yang so bad. Oh my god. That might be what I watch for the halfway point of Nirvana and Fire, cuz Luo Yang looks so good. Scum Villain Saving System. That is one MXTX novel that I haven't gotten into. Not because I don't like it, but because I just haven't gotten a chance to read it. Very busy. Our Flag Means Death. I have heard a lot of good things about Our Flag Means Death. That might come after Vox Machina, because I'm not feeling The Witcher. I really am not. Our Flag Means Death might come after Vox Machina. We'll see. I can't guarantee anything at this point, because, life is hard. But I've heard a lot of good things about Our Flag Means Death. And it looks great. I love, like, period pieces. I even really like... I know Bridgerton is kind of, like... I guess... What's the word I'm looking for? Vilified, in a way, because... It's two things. It's horny, and it's horny people in pretty gowns. And that's really all I really want sometimes. As a matter of fact, my mother recently confessed to me that she read all 9 of the Bridgerton novels, and she said she blew through all of them in, like, less than a week. Yeah, I've heard good things about Our Flag Means Death. I've been watching an anime called Komi Can't Communicate, which is adorable. Komi Can't Communicate is an adorable show. And, like, every time she does something like order a drink by herself at Starbucks or, like, order a sandwich at Subway, I'm like, aw, I'm so proud of her. I've also been watching Kokuro's Basketball. But I usually watch sports anime when I'm working out, because it makes me want to work out. I'll probably be rewatching Haikyuu once I get my Funimation credentials back, anyway. Oh, I almost hit the wrong button. All right. So this is going to be interesting. I had no idea that this would come up in the book. I thought... I guess they changed this in the Word of Honor to make Wen Kexing seem a little less... I don't want to use the word predatory, but he was the only reason why he helped out Xiao Wenning in the first place is because he was cute. Okay, so let's see. Chapter 16. Spirit Fox. Henceforth, the duo turned into a trio. Dongting was one of Zhou Zishu's destinations regardless, so he had no objections. There was a type of people who lived their lives in such normality. It would cause... I apologize, I just got a text from my mother. There we go. I don't tend to, interrupt. I don't tend to interrupt streams for texts, but you don't wait for a text from mom. When you get a text from your mother, it's like, it's best just to reply immediately, unless you're like, I don't know, in the middle of hard physical labor. I don't know. It's just, usually... my inclination is to respond immediately. Let's see. Okay. There is a type of people who live their lives in normality. It would only cause... Oh, gracious. Hang on. There was a type of people who lived their life in such normality. It would only cause headaches for them to be forced to think outside the box. An example of this would be Xiao Wenning. Additionally, there were another type who couldn't help but look deeper into everything and anything, confusing themselves with many possibilities before they can even realize it. An example of this would be Zhou Zishu. Zhou Zishu and Wen Kexing went back to their usual routine of trading quips and insults back and forth with unending enthusiasm, trying to probe the other incessantly. Xiao Wenning, after listening to them confusedly, gave the final conclusion. You two have such an admirable camaraderie. Zhou Zishu shut up, glancing at Xiao Wenning in complete silence. He knew the patriarch of Qingfeng's sword sect was this old sly fox. How on earth did that man manage to raise an innocent rabbit like this one? And listen, he grew up in seclusion. Listen, when you grow up in the country, there are just certain things you're ignorant of. And I can say that as someone who is country as hell. Sorry, I was turning my heating pad back on. Wen Kexing unabashedly took advantage of that to wrap his arms around Zhou Zishu's shoulders, smiling at Xiao Wenning. Thank you, young Master Xiao. In fact, I have made up my mind that in this lifetime I will marry no one else but Brother Zhou. Wen Kexing... Jesus. Xiao Wenning's mouth was as wide open as his eyes. Zhou Zishu sought back, being used to it already. I'm afraid I have to let Brother Wen down. With my incurable illness, I won't live on for much longer. What good will it do to bind yourself to this slowly dying soul? Wen Kexing replied seriously, If you're gone, I will remain solitary till the end of my life. Zhou Zishu's words carried daggers. For a great mind to suffer loneliness is often destiny. Who am I to tamper with it? Wen Kexing was undaunted. Come on, don't be too humble, Ah Xu. That's way too polite of you. Zhou Zishu quickly waved his hands. Not at all. Why would I be? Xiao Wenning's gaze went back and forth between the two of them. When he came back to his senses, he blurted out a question. Is it Brother Zhou's illness that's obstructing your feelings for each other? Sorry, that was an ugly laugh. I apologize, but woo! That was really funny to me. After a short amount of silence, Wen Kexing burst out laughing, feeling very fond of Xiao Wenning. Zhou Zishu coughed after a good while, removing Wen Kexing's arms that were around his neck and replying with a solemn face, Brother Xiao need not think too much into it. The closest that I and Brother Wen can become is an estranged pair. So Xiao Wenning frowned. Xiao Wenning frowned, thinking that the other was trying to delude himself. A person like Brother Xiao shouldn't suffer like this, he said in sorrow. Xiao Wenning is so cute. Oh my god. Zhou Zishu smiled back bitterly. Thank you, Brother Xiao, but I don't feel the slightest. My master is acquainted with some peculiar figures in Jianghu. Unfortunately, a few of them are in the from Shaman Medicine Valley. It'd be wonderful if Brother Zhou could come with me back home after dealing with matters concerning the unorthodox sects. My master definitely possesses means that can help you. Zhou Zishu was moved to tears, so he kept his mouth shut. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wenning was a true man of action. He immediately made a fist palm salute. Wait for me at the inn. I will go send a message to my uncle. He turned around and left right after. Wen Kexing praised, How enthusiastic. A man who can truly be my match. He turned his head to Zhou Zishu, studying him somewhat pensively. Wen Kexing paused, then asked, What is it? Did my passionate words earlier manage to reach Ah Xu's heart after all? Are you planning to reciprocate with your body? Zhou Zishu smiled coldly. Forgive me, but I feel like Brother Wen's motives behind going to Dongting are quite puzzling. Wen Kexing turned serious. Helping people in need and being generous are only small virtues. I'm not sure what that sentence is supposed to say. Do you know? I'm assuming it's do you know what bigger virtues are? Do you know what bigger virtues are? Zoji Shu. Oh, hang on. I realize that my boobs keep knocking my pop filter back and forth. There we go. Now I can breathe. Wen Kexing replied slowly. A day with an empty hell is a day further from ascending. Good and evil has always been able to Good and evil has always been impossible. It's always impossible for good and evil to coexist ever since the ancient time, don't you think? When he said this, his calm gaze directed it somewhere far away, revealing his handsome side profile. His usual playful demeanor was gone without a trace, and he looked like an expressionless Buddhist stone statue. This is the mortal world, he continued, and in the mortal world, monsters shouldn't exist. That respectable and virtuous Sir Gao Chong wants to extinguish evils for the sake of everyone. If I don't lend him a hand, all the years of reading holy books will go to waste. It's said that only years and years of cultivation one is able to land in this realm. It will be for nothing if they don't make a mark for themselves. So Zishu still stayed silent. Wen Kexing looked back at him. What do you think, Ashu? After a long while, So Zishu laughed softly. Brother Wen speaks as if you are a true gentleman. Wen Kexing didn't answer straight to the point. There are 3 types of people in this world. The ones who can eat meat, the ones who don't mind it, and the ones who can't stand it. This is how they are born to be. But isn't it hilarious if the first type is born into poverty, and the third type is born into luxury? Zhou Jishu, after a bout of stillness, spoke leisurely and carefully. Brother Wen talks about such mysteries that I'm unable to understand. However, I do know one thing. And what is that? One won't stay unchanged once thrust into a different situation. Wen Kexing was startled at that for a few seconds. Then he laughed out loud, unconstrained to the point of cheering up. Unconstrained to the point of tearing up. Zhou Jishu watched him, expressions remaining the same, his sickly skin not betraying any emotions. His eyelids lowered, and he looked like he wanted to search deep inside Wen Kexing's soul. Here we go. Now Zhou Jishu's a little bit hooked. After an unknown amount of time, Wen Kexing stood upright again, breathing hard, hands wiping tears at the corner of his eyes. Shoo, I found that you're the first person in my entire lifetime that suits my taste the most. You know, I'm actually a little bit knowledgeable in the art of disguise, too. He looked at Zhou Jishu without blinking, to the point that even the fake layer of skin on his face felt uncomfortable. He answered without thinking. Are you really? Wen Kexing said with absolute sincerity, Therefore, maybe I will transform myself into Guxiang. So Zishu stood there in a daze. When he looked that Wen Kexing was looking him up and down crudely, he immediately recomposed himself, turning to head towards the inn without a word. Wen Kexing stared after his back, his gaze drawn to the shoulder blades hidden under clothes. To him, even when the other man was dressing in rags and looked dejected in his own misery, there was an indescribable horror that he exuded. It took him back to that afternoon with the brilliant sun, when Zhou Jishu closed his eyes and leaned into the wall by the main street, his beggar-like demeanor looking more relaxed than anyone else in this world. But Wen Kexing knew he was only sunbathing. How can such a man not be a stunning beauty? Wen Kexing thought smugly. During the near 30 years he had lived, he had never been wrong about that. Every time I see this show, I remember that Wen Kexing is technically younger than me. And that bothers me. Seeing that Zosie Shu was now far away, Wen Kexing hurried after him, mumbling under his breath. How can one never know if they will change? How can one ever know if they will change? And whether one is averse to meat or not? Won't it be miserable anyway if they're thrown into a desolate place with nothing else to devour? At nightfall, Xiao Wenning caught up to them. He felt the atmosphere between the other two had become strange, so he asked cautiously, "Did Brother Zhou and Brother Wen have a quarrel?" "Don't think too much into it, Brother Xiao." They were both replied at the same time. Again. Wen Kexing narrowed his eyes at Zosie Shu, his gaze sharp and full of tease. Zosie Shu feigned ignorance. Xiao Wenning scratched his head. "Actually, I don't know how to word this, but yes, I have heard of such a thing before. I've never in my life seen it with real men." He's so cute. Wen Kexing looked at him silently, so he continued hurriedly. "Please don't be mistaken, Brother Wen. Oh, sorry. Please don't be mistaken, Brother Wen. I don't mean anything else. Although, it is a little difficult to take in. But you're both very chivalrous individuals. It's a little strange, but..." He coughed. "Please don't take my words seriously. We always have to act and speak proper." In other... Brother Zhou, Brother Wen, I promise, I'm a real ally. Oh, this poor child. Zosie Shu poured a cup of wine for himself and leisurely took a few sips. I am making up words, apparently. Someone needs to draw a picture of Xiao Wenning wearing an ally shirt. I need it. Where was I? I started making up words. Zosie Shu poured a cup of wine for himself leisurely and took a few sips. Silly boy is getting his words tangled up, he thought. Xiao Wenning then lowered his head and only looked up after a good while, his face red and his voice small. "So, do you two want separate rooms or just one room?" Zosie Shu choked on his wine. Even Wen Kexing had to stare at Xiao Wenning and thought, "We found a treasure of a boy, haven't we?" The atmosphere among the three turned weird. No one spoke. Only Zosie Shu was making coughing sounds. But suddenly, there was a piercing scream from the upper floor, making the few guests downstairs raise their head. They saw the waiter stumble down just as he'd seen a ghost, a voice quivering. Murder! Xiao Wenning's face was all serious as he grabbed his sword and headed upstairs. There was a man and woman. There was a man and a woman who did this at the same time. They dressed neatly and looked like brother and sister. There were always people who couldn't stop themselves from worrying about others' business. There are always people who couldn't stop themselves from worrying about others' business. They're empaths. Wen Kexing kicked at Zosie Shu with his foot. Shu, why don't you go check it out?" Zosie Shu stood up and lowered his upper body. "You first." Wen Kexing rushed upstairs. When he was passing by Zosie Shu, he suddenly slowed down and got closer, his voice low. "If you spend the night with me, I will turn into Guxiang as you wish." "I'm really honored, but I'd rather sleep in the stable." Wen Kexing clicked his tongue, glancing at the other. "You're no fun." Zosie Shu followed close behind him. The moment they reached the second floor, the smell of blood was right in their face. The door to the room was wide open. Xiao Wenning stood there with a grave expression. turning to beckon the two forward once he saw them. "You should come look at this person." So Zishu walked toward him and saw a man propped up by the bedpost, his clothes in a state of sloppiness, revealing his chest. On it was a black mark in the shape of a hand. His arms were cut off and thrown into a corner, blood splattering everywhere. The corpse's head lolled to one side, eyes unfocused, face pale. It was evident that he had been dead for a while. Wen Kexing was oohing and awing. "This one looks like the thief who crashed into me the other day." Xiao Wenning also let out an "Ah!" and looked closer at the body. His expression complicated. He also looks like the one who crashed into me. Crash into me. Sorry. I've been watching Inside Job. Don't judge me. The two men who stared at the same fate had to rely on Zhou Zishu for helps. The two men who shared the same fate had to rely on Zhou Zishu for help, stared at each other, feeling a deep sense of solidarity. When they heard the girl beside them speak, "I know this person. He's Fang Buzui, the Nine-Claw Spirit Fox." I apologize if I'm flubbing words a bit more often. I thought I was all warmed up, but apparently I'm not. There are so many bees outside my window. It is such a beautiful day outside. Like, I'm supposed to be going on a walk with the boyfriend. Oh, sorry. I just showed you, like, all of this. My bad. It is such a beautiful day outside. I kind of want to go on a walk with the boyfriend. But it's supposed to rain by the time he gets here. We're supposed to be going to the Ren Fair tomorrow, and it's supposed to rain all day. I'ma come like hell or literally high water. Just watch me. I've never been to a Renaissance fair. I am going to that damn Renaissance fair. Chapter 20. Chapter 20? Where did I get 20 from? Chapter 17. Lapis. Xiao Wenning asked in a stupor. Is he that deplorable thief, Fang Buzui? The young maiden nodded, pointing at the corpse's left hand. It says that Fang Buzui is a man in his 30s and has a deformed left hand. There's also an unconfirmed rumor that... Her face went pink as she stopped there. Zhou Zishu studied the body's face and clean-shaven chin. He continued in her stead. Also, there is a rumor that Fang Zui has another deformity on his body. Should our young lady feel uncomfortable, it is better that you go outside or turn your back to us. Removing his pants will confirm whether he's the legendary thief or not. The girl glanced at her male companion in embarrassment. Oh, is this Yao Long and Don Quan? Ha! The girl glanced at her male companion in embarrassment. He coughed lightly. Yao Long, you should go. She went outside and waited by the door, her back facing the room. The moment she turned away, Wen Kexing expertly stripped down the dead man's trousers to reveal that a particular part of the body had been cut off. He rubbed his chin and thought, so it is him. No wonder I couldn't feel anything out of the ordinary when we touched before. Unwavering and completely unbothered, he continued to remove Fang Buzui's clothes entirely and searched around. He found his money pouch along with a big pile of assorted items and opened it, overjoyed when he found that nothing had been lost. With perfect contentment, he put it back in his chest pocket, not forgetting to tell Xiao Wenning politely, Brother Xiao, come over here and see if your stuff is still here. Xiao Wenning and the other young man stared at him, dumbstruck. Zhou Zishu reminded him with a cold tone. The dead is more important right now, Mr. Charitable Wen. He ignored the stranger's disapproving look, adding, Can you pay me back now? Wen Kexing's face was full of grief. We already belong to each other. Why are you still haggling over that? As the young man's expression became even more entertaining, Zhou Zishu gripped Wen Kexing's collar and threw the nuisance of a man aside. He squatted down to examine the body from head to toe, then frowned afterwards and concluded, He died after a single blow. The attack went through his body, from his chest to back, clearly the result of the Raksha palm. The stranger exclaimed, You're talking about the delighted morning ghosts, Raksha palm? I'm afraid so. Zhou Zishu nodded, covering the body. He turned to the girl outside the door. You can come in now, young miss. The man sized him up, then made a salute. Ah, yeah, it is him! My name is Deng Huang. My name is Deng Huan. Oh, yeah. My name is Deng Huan. Okay. Disciple of Gao Cheng. And this is my junior apprentice, Sister Gao Xiaolang. We were traveling to accommodate experience, but a few days ago, a message was received from my master, so we had to rush back before Dong Ting's gathering. How may I address you? Apologies. Xiao Wenning hurried to answer. Many apologies for our tactlessness. It is an honor to meet you, Sir young Sir Deng. Surely this young miss must be Sir Gao's daughter. My name is Xiao Wenning, from Qingfeng Sword Sect. Currently following my patriarch's orders to attend Dongting. My uncle will also be there soon enough. On the way I ran into this thief, master. It was fortunate of me to have been assisted by Brother Zhou and Brother Wen here. Deng Huang added, Then from where do you two brave... Zhou Zishu, still squatting, turned to him at that and smiled. You overestimate our bravery. I'm called Zhou Shu, a mere spontaneous wanderer who belongs to no sex. As for that one, he pointed to Wen Kexing, pausing a little for dramatic effect. He is Wen Kexing. He might look gentlemanly, but in truth he is a deeply experienced, dirty hoodlum. Wen Kexing replied calmly, I've only ever been teasing you, Ah Shu. I might have to change Wen Kexing's voice. I wanted his voice to be deep, but I might have to switch it to more like it is in the show. Mostly because I want to be able to breathe. There are so many male voices in this book, and I'm so not used to doing that. Actually, that's a lie. I'm used to doing young male voices. Older males, not so much. Hey, I've only ever been teasing to you, Ah Shu. Zhou Zishu's face was light, and I'm glad I'm a priority. Gao Xiaolan's attention was evidently no longer on the body. In contrast, Deng Huan didn't seem perturbed, only smiling back kindly with an attitude that was neither cowering nor arrogant. The manners of a true hero from the orthodox sects, and someone who belonged to the leading force in Dongting. How humorous of you two. If you come with Brother Xiao to Dongting, then you are one of us. Didn't Brother Zhou say that this thief also died under the Raksha palm of the Delighted Morning Ghost? Delighted Morning. That is such a badass name. He and Gao Xiaoliang... fuck me, man. He and Gao Xiaolan glanced at each other while Zhou Zishu and Wen Kexing played dumb with their expression of ignorance. Xiao Wenning ended up asking, Also, I heard that the outskirts of the Xiao's holdings was disturbed by the ghosts. Did they? So, young Sir Xiao did not know. Well, I'll actually give her a very soft voice. So, young Sir Xiao didn't know. A while before, a message was sent from Taihu, saying that Sir Mu Yung of Dianzhan Manor was a guest of the Xiaos at that time, had been murdered by the Rakshapam. The the ghosts of the valley have caused numerous atrocities. How dare they be this How dare they be this arrogant? This place was not far from Dongting, as it would take at most a day to get there. It wasn't wrong to consider them already in great Sir Gao's domain. It was not clear whether this young lady who was so worked up over justice, or merely over the fact that there was someone intruding on her father's territory. Nonetheless, Deng Huang and Xiao Wenning nodded on instinct. Correct. Absolutely. Correct. Absolutely. Back when the pugilist scene formed the greatest alliance, there were 3 pieces of the realm's command, each in the possession of a respectable figure. They could only be used in times of great urgency. When the pieces were put together, a hero gathering would be held, and the participants being anyone with talent and gallantry. One piece was in Iron Judge Gao Chong's hands, one in the Shaolin monasteries, and the last piece was rumored to be the reclusive hermit Monk Gu of Mount Ming. It was quite unexpected for the unrest about Ghost Valley to reach even the infamous Monk Gu, who was too engrossed in his cultivation endeavor to pay any attention to the outside world. After Deng Huan discussed with Xiao Wenning, they consulted the rest and decided to hire a carriage to deliver Feng Buzui's corpse to Gao Chong immediately in the night, preventing further complications. Xiao Wenning and Deng Huan seemed to have met their match in each other. Their first meeting seemed like that of old friends. Zhou Zishu stayed detached. He had no idea how Gao Chong was like as a person, but at least he had taught his disciples and daughter to be decent people. Gao Xiaolong walked beside them, chiming in at times, her tactfulness and manners a complete contrast to her youth. She was around the same age as Gu Xiang, but in no way prone to being loud or conceited, an exemplary lady. When Kexing suddenly sighed and lamented, "If only my Gu Xiang can learn something or two from young Miss Gao," Gao Xiaolong smiled at him gracefully. "Don't flatter me, Big Brother Wen. Please don't flatter me, Big Brother Wen." I feel like I need to do something even higher for her. I don't know. I'll work on it. When Kexing's face was entirely serious. I'm only... Oh, damn. Zhou Zishu scoffed, voice lowered. Young Lady Gao is Sir Gao's daughter, after all. And Gu Xiang, she's a good kid, but it's inevitable for her to not follow in her superior's footsteps. When Kexing's face was entirely serious. Shu, I'm only praising Miss Gao truthfully. You don't have to get jealous. Gao Xiaolong immediately glanced at them in utter embarrassment, and hurried up to catch up to Deng Huan and Xiao Wenning, leaving Zhou Zishu and Wen Kexing behind. Zhou Zishu laughed softly. Brother Wen, there is one matter that has been plaguing my mind. Why were Feng Buzui's clothes in a disheveled state when we walked in? From what I know, good old Feng wasn't the type to have a normal routine. When Kexing, using his hand to support his chin, turned things over in his mind for a few minutes, then asked, You mean the delighted morning ghost had taken a liking to Feng Buzui, and the later struggled to fight off the former's advances, so he killed his unattainable object of fancy in a fit of rage? He shook his head and sighed after that. After all, it has always been inevitable for beauties to suffer. Zhou Zishu replied, his expression betraying nothing. What an excellent explanation from Brother Wen. Why did I ever think that the murderer must have killed Feng Zui for something on his body? Wen Kexing choked on his words briefly, pretending to agree. Sounds reasonable enough. He turned his head to see Zhou Zishu looking at him meaningfully. Did Brother Wen lose anything else that day besides the pouch? Wen Kexing faced his eyes directly and confessed, yes, the money was intact, but the piece of lapis armor was nowhere to be found. The smile on Zhou Zishu's face slowly receded, his eyes dark and cold as if submerged in ice. Wen Kexing looked innocent and smiley, as usual. After a good while, Zhou Zishu lowered his voice. What are we to do about this, Mr. Charitable Wen? You didn't kill him, but he died because of you. After a good while, Zhou Zishu lowered his voice. Oh, sorry. Wen Kexing fell silent. At that moment ahead of them, Xiao Wenning and Deng Huan were discussing Zhou Zishu's illness. Deng Huan turned around, about to ask if he could manage traveling through the night, and if they should hire another carriage for him. But he sensed a change of atmosphere between the two men. Wen Kexing was no longer smiling, and there was an unreadable flash in Zhou Zishu's eyes. Deng Huan felt puzzled, and was going to inquire the two further when Wen Kexing suddenly laughed, his hand as quick as lightning gripping Zhou Zishu's chin as he leaned down and kissed him. Deng Huan stood there, stunned, but educated as he was, he turned away awkwardly after a few minutes, feigning calmness at the dazed Gao Tiaolong and Xiao Wenning. If, then, us four should take steps in advance, let's do that! Too bad he miscounted the moment he phased out. When the three of them ditched without looking back, Zhou Zishu broke away from Wen Kexing's grip, ruthfully delivering a punch to the other's abdomen, his expression cold. The joke is not funny, Brother Wen. Wen Kexing bent forward to clutch his stomach, an unnerving glint of a smile still evident on his face. I didn't kill him, but he died because of me? Have you ever considered that you're wrong, Asu? Zhou Zishu watched him icily. Wen Kexing slowly stood up in the middle of the empty road at night time. His voice was low, almost like a sigh. Inside the lapis armor is either the greatest martial art guide or a treasure from a rival country. Who wouldn't want it? His mouth curled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Feng Zui didn't give a damn about what he stole, even if it's charity money. As long as it satisfied his greed, why wouldn't he want it? The delighted morning ghost was forced to either enter... Why do I keep saying either? The delighted morning ghost was forced to enter the valley for his crimes, and lives a life that is half hell. So why wouldn't he want it? Why wouldn't you? You say you have to gather merits, only because you don't want your past sins to come up once you've judged in the underworld. And if there exists an object that can make you unbeatable and untouched by ghosts, why wouldn't you want it? Zhou Zishu shook his head, scoffing. I've never been afraid of ghosts knocking on my door. He walked away briskly without looking back. Wen Kexing watched his back, his expressions dark and indecipherable. Suddenly he laughed out loud. You've got good taste in cassia wine, my dear Saint Joe. While Zhou Zishu tried to ignore it, he couldn't help but wipe his mouth ferociously with his fist, cursing, Damn you, Wen Kexing! This is definitely, it's giving It's giving Adam from Skate the Infinity. Like dead ass, it is. And that's not an insult. Unlike a lot of people, I think Adam from Skate the Infinity belongs in jail, but I will say he is a fantastic character. Gotta go now. Okay. Anonym, be safe. Also do your taxes. Okay. Oh, jeez. I keep bumping this because I'm not used to sitting back while recording. As a matter of fact, usually I record like this. So, leaning back is... I kind of like it a little bit better, not gonna lie. I feel a lot better and my back isn't as, like, terrible, because my back is usually pretty terrible. Okay, last chapter. Let me hydrate a little bit more. Okay. Chapter 18. Oh, this is gonna be a long one. Dong Ting. Dong Ting was bustling with noise and people. In just one night, figures from all trades across Jianghu were gathered here. And, after having proclaimed their titles among themselves, each started pursuing their own ulterior motives. Zhou Zishu's group, during their meal at two taverns, had already witnessed at least 3 fights breaking out before the day could end. Zhou Zishu felt this place was no better than a dog market, with people incessantly barking at each other and competing over some of the most trivial matters ever. He wondered how his gathering of heroes would turn out. Deng Huan and Gao Xiaolong took them to go see Gao Cheng first and foremost. There were only 3 factions who possessed the realm's command. Shaolin was highly respected in the pugilist scene, with their strength being their raw power, and Monk Gu of Mount Changming was elusive but greatly admired, known for his martial skill. The most socialized out of all of them was Sir Gao, as he had a wide circle of acquaintances spreading across many big sects, and, therefore, was one of the biggest influence among the 3. He was actually not at all the type of hero with a pleasant appearance and graceful manners. At first, he looked neither handsome nor wicked, but an old, short, and stout man with gray temple hair. Wow, the show was actually quite faithful to his appearance, unlike Wen Kexing. When he talked, there was an evident healthy spirit to him, and his laugh was especially loud and hearty. One look at him, and Zhou Zishu understood how he got his current status. Each person had their own unique aura, and people who would flock together, separating into groups based on this invisible element. An example would be the type of people like Wen Kexing and Zhou Zishu. One looked like a sickly, staggering beggar, and the other a silver-tongued, male, beauty-loving troublemaker. They weren't that special at first glance, but someone with a sharp mind could easily sense the subtle distinctions to them once acquainted. It was possible that both Zhou Zishu and Wen Kexing could blend in a crowd without anyone noticing, but after all, they weren't that type. So naturally, there was no reason for them to do such a thing. Furthermore, blending in would only turn them into unremarkable props. But Zhou Zishu would raise his guards every time Wen Kexing got near, and during their first meeting, Wen Kexing had warned Guxiang against provoking the other man, so he knows he crossed a line. It was giving an instinct that helped one identify their peers. It was a kind of instinct that helped one identify their peers. This wasn't a thing in Gao Cheng's case, however. He could be on friendly terms with anyone, and people would overlook everything from his age to status the moment they stood before him, whether one was young or old, from righteous sex, or simply a knight-errant. He could always evoke a sense of familiarity with them, one which made them feel like they were of the same age and had actually experienced a part of life together. So Gao Chong is far more gregarious than the show portrayed him as. Because the show portrayed him as someone who was quite a bit more temperamental and maybe even a bit mean. Without meaning to, but according to the book, he's actually quite gregarious, and people are quite fond of him, it seems. Zhou Zishu and Wen Kexing involuntarily stopped their nonsensical blabbering to observe this infamous Gao Chong, this infamous Sir Gao silently, only exchanging necessary small talk at random and with politeness. Zhou Zishu couldn't help but think, if only Tian Chuang had such a talent. But there was only one Gao Chong in this whole world. They arrived relatively early. A few days later, one by one came the big sex representatives, and Dongting Lake and had very likely turned into a place for a family reunion. Every day one would hear something along the line of, "Ah, you must be someone, someone, someone. I've heard a lot about you. Please don't flatter me, of course. Ghost Valley has been on their evil rampage for way too long. We will not stop before they are eradicated. It is natural that I lend my strength so that we can finally move on in the name of justice and righteousness." During the past days, Zhou Zishu had to listen to them until his ears couldn't bear it anymore. But when he was bored out of his mind, Wen Kexing was nowhere to be seen. It was a bit quiet without the other's rowdiness. He was strolling along the street, wearing new robes provided by the Gao family. It was obvious that this was benefit from mingling with It was obvious this was a benefit from mingling with Xiao Wenning's crowd. As he got to enjoy a pleasant stay at the Gao's residence with delicious food and nice clothes to replace his ragged ensemble, it actually took a while for him to get used to the new clothes. He had worn rough materials for so long that the smooth fabric felt slippery and cold to the touch, just like a layer of mucus. Me wearing anything satin, oh my god. He shook his head in self-mockery at his sallow, skinny hands and sallow, skinny face. This nail-ravaged body seemed incapable of handling the clothes currently hanging on his frame, not unlike a shaky skeleton struggling to prop up the fabrics. He himself could see the wretchedness in his appearance, and a random glance at the mirror was enough to warrant no further inspection. It was clear that even a dragon robe would not make one a crown prince. "Hi, Luli. It's fine, as long as you're here." But I am almost done. Internally, he thought Wen Kexing was only mindlessly chasing after... I need to stop mumbling. Internally, he thought that Wen Kexing was only mindlessly chasing after him. With the lack of courtesans with their pretty kerchiefs, beggars couldn't be choosers. That was obviously why the man glued himself to him to ramble his ears off. Wasn't there a saying that after 3 years in the army, even a sow will look like a goddess? Zhou Zishu felt Wen Kexing's situation was no different. He was only interested in boars rather than sows. Today he visited a tavern on his own. He chose a seat by the window and asked for some side dishes and a pot of yellow wine, drinking it leisurely while sunbathing. Wen Kexing saw the other man's back the moment he walked in. It was unclear why he always got a very distinct feeling from looking at Zhou Zishu's back, to the point that he could recognize it immediately in a crowd. Wen Kexing, all that tells me is that you're a slow walker. Me with my boyfriend, honestly. I'm a very slow walker compared to him. It's not my fault. My hips suck. His back wasn't always straightened. Oftentimes it would lazily curve in a way that didn't at all affect his elegance and gave the impression of an incredibly comfortable person. Wen Kexing found out there seemed to be not a single matter that could plague his mind, and one would feel unusually peaceful and comforted the moment they landed their eyes on him. He couldn't help but stop walking to stare blankly at Zhou Zishu's relaxed figure. An emotion surged up within him. The emotion of nothingness. It was as if this man's attitude was presented to mock all of those out there with worries heavy on their mind, but had to pretend they were the opposite. Zhou Zishu. Soul like water lenses, body like willow, he thought. The world was boundless, with so many paths and sceneries to behold and experience. So how could one completely disregard all of those and keep himself in complete desolation, with no worries on his mind? He was not entirely indifferent. He had a variety of emotions, but they came and went in a blink of an eye, seemingly never existing in the first place. Wen Kexing inhaled deeply and cast his eyes downward. Soon enough, back on his face was an irritatingly cheerful expression, and he walked over and sat down opposite Zhou Zishu. He took a cup without asking, and snatched the wine pot from Zhou Zishu's hand, pouring one for himself, and commented after a small sip, "Not too bad, this wine." Jeez. That whole couple paragraphs was like, Wen Kexing has depression. He even did that thing where he was like, where he goes like that, like, you know you're not into it, so you're just kind of like, and then you just kind of force a smile onto your face, like, hey, I'm totally thrilled to be here. I want death. Zhou Zishu glanced at him languidly and spoke up. "Excuse me, can I have another pot?" Put it on his tab. Wen Kexing stared back silently. Zhou Zishu gave a soft smile, and to prove he wasn't a stingy person, he explained, "You still owed me 5 silver liangs. 5 silver liangs. I'm just providing a chance for you to pay me back without any additional interest. That totally works in your favor, right?" After a long while, Wen Kexing could only let out a, "Thanks." "You're welcome, Brother Wen." Zhou Zishu smiled back. Wen Kexing had an unusually strong urge to tease him back, but at that moment, the tavern door behind Zhou Zishu opened, and there were voices. We'll stay here for a meal for the time being. Then we can go see Brother Gao in the evening." A somewhat familiar voice replied, "Of course. Anything you say, Uncle." As soon as that happened, Wen Kexing got to witness a highly entertaining scene. His former creditor, who minutes ago was completely sober while being helpful with his debt, suddenly swayed side to side and fell onto the table drunkenly with a crashing noise. His fingers were still gripping the wine cup and his face glued to the table. He looked as if he wanted to stand up, but couldn't figure how to, all the while grumbling, "Not drunk. Can drink more." Wen Kexing and Gu Xiang followed Zhou Zishu and Zheng Chengling back when they were traveling together, but only Zhou Zishu noticed. Zheng Chengling at the time wasn't in a positive state of mind, therefore he didn't notice. He did meet Wen Kexing once at the shrine, but the man left no impression on him. Wen Kexing crashed onto the table right when Zheng Chengling and Zhao Jing walked past, and they were completely clueless on the way to the upper floor. The waiter brought them food and wine, and the other two had disappeared upstairs. One glance, and he asked worriedly, "Wasn't this one really sober a minute ago? How did he get drunk that quickly?" Zozishu sat up again with no problem, before he could exclaim further, and took the wine pot without even looking at the food. The waiter was dumbstruck as Zozishu waved his arm. I didn't say I was drunk and that I could drink more? Didn't I say I wasn't drunk and I could drink more? I'm not the type that would joke about that, you know. The waiter was experienced enough to turn and walk away, albeit stiffly. Wen Kexing laughed and asked in a low voice, "You scared of that kid?" Zozishu didn't spare him a look. "Why would I be scared of him? Then why did you hide?" Zozishu toyed with the peanuts and drank his wine in an unhurried manner, then answered vaguely, "Troubles. The moment he sees me, he'll go Shifu this and Shifu that. He's clingy, like a little girl." When Kexing's brows were raised, "Why did you save him back then?" "You sold yourself for 2 kyans. For 2 tians?" Zozishu munched on peanuts, then spoke after a good while. He looked pitiful. This book is making me crave peanuts, and I'm about to go get the boiled peanuts we have in the cabinet. Like, dead ass, that is what I'm about to do. Zozishu munched on the peanuts, then spoke after a good while. He looked pitiful. Wen Kexing fell silent after that. Suddenly, he took out a money pouch from his chest and counted the silvers carefully before pushing them forward. Here are 3 liangs, here are 3 liangs, 2 tiangs, 3 liangs for my debt, and I want to buy you with 2 tians. I am not sure how to pronounce that word. I promise I will care for you and let no one come after you." Zozishu looked down at the gleaming silver and took a sip of wine, seemingly enjoying himself. He pushed the 2 liangs back. "This is enough wine for the day." After mulling it over, he pushed the 2 tians back to its owner too. "I'm not selling myself to you." Wen Kexing had a mysterious smile on his face. "Why is that?" "You look annoying." Zozishu answered bluntly. Wen Kexing laughed, as if it were encouragement. It is. In Wen Kexing's world, that is encouragement. Everyone fully arrived at Dongting half a month later. Gao Cheng requested that a large temple courtyard nearby was used as the gathering location. After another half a day, Abbot Simu from Shaolin Temple came with some of his disciples to present the Second Realm's command piece. As expected, Monk Gu didn't appear in person. He ordered an around 20-year-old respectable-looking disciple to come in his stead to present the last command piece. The night the 3 command pieces were reunited, the Gao's manor was set on fire. Oh, man. Okay, this section is definitely different from the book. I figured it would be because during the show, there were too many point of view shifts. It was Guxiang, and then it was Gao Cheng, and then it was Zozishu and Wen Kexing, and then it was Scorpion sect, and then it was the Ghost sect. Like, it was just everything. It was everywhere. So it doesn't surprise me that this section of the book is a lot different from the show, because the show was all over the place around this part. So I get it. Oof, man. So, yeah, I think that will do me. That was 6 chapters. And my throat's already a little raw because, I guess I didn't warm up well enough. Okay, so we have a couple of housekeeping things. Okay, so yesterday I had a bit of a flare-up, so I wasn't able to take care of some stuff that I usually take care of on Fridays. So I do not think there will be a video for Nirvana and Fire tomorrow. Not tomorrow, next Friday. However, there will most likely be another read aloud stream. I do have another book that I'm working on, and that's causing some complications because the deadline for said book was moved up quite quickly. Because it turns out that my client has to go to a wedding at the beginning of next month. So I need to be finished with the book by what's today's date? The 15th. I need to be finished with the book by the 17th. So, and that's like what, Monday? So that is going to take up a lot of my time, and I'm not going to be able to and I'm probably not going to be able to do a video and edit at the same time. Like, I won't be able to edit a video and edit my audio at the same time. So I will be, I will probably be taking a bit of a Nirvana and Fire break, next week. But, of course, the week after that, we'll start going, steadily. Just a heads up, there will be no videos or streams during the first week of July. There will be no videos or streams. I will be back home visiting my family, and for those of you who know, I actually do struggle with stress-related alopecia, so I am actually going to go see my mom's doctor. I'm actually going to go see my mom's doctor to address all the little sparse bald spots and all of this going on. So, my mom's doctor, actually, her hair is the longest I have ever seen it since I was 13 years old. So, that works. He gets results. So, I am going to be seeing that doctor and getting that worked on. Also not seen are the bald spots on the back of my head. But that's why I wear a hat, in all of my videos, because, my hair does kind of fall out with abandon, and oftentimes, in the back of my head and on the sides, my hair is very sparse and it doesn't grow in certain places. And my mom, had very short hair as well, and was actually using, like, wigs and weave to cover up, her bald spots, but after a year, doctor took care of it. So I'm going to go see them in July, and they should... Hey, maybe I'll actually be able to get braids. I've always wanted to get braids again ever since I started trying to grow out my hair. It's not been successful so far. But yeah. I'm gonna go see her, and so the first week of July there will be no videos or streams. Yeah, there will be another read aloud stream next week, and there will most likely be some Kingdom Hearts streams this week as well. They'll probably be around 5 o'clock. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I am probably going to go back to Final Mix. I will probably not be playing Proud Mode. I would still like the game to be fun, and if a game is not fun, it's not worth playing, and I'm not going to have my favorite game of all time not be worth playing. So, yeah, I'm probably going to go back to Final Mix difficulty. So it'll be easier to play. But, other than that, I think we are all good. So, there will probably be no videos, but streams next week, and everything will progress as per usual until July. So, yeah, that is everything. Thank you all for watching. At some point, Vox Machina is gonna be made. Don't know when. It's gonna be one day. I promise you, it will happen, because I went on that whole spiel about adult animation, and now that adult animation is here, and I haven't gotten to it yet. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, before I go, and thank you all for saying that, that I should be taking care of myself. You'd be surprised at how many people do not say that to me. But, what was I about to say? Oh, right. So, I am planning on my book to be available for purchase by the time the school year starts, so by September, I am planning on my book to be available for purchase. So, just keep an eye out for that. I'll be advertising it more and more as the editing process continues. I can tell you that the editing process is hard. Very hard, but yeah, be on the lookout for that. And Aside from that, please be sure to leave a like if you can, and subscribe if you really, really like my videos. And thank you all for being here. I will see you in the next video.